Eric Metaxas Show.
It's the show about all those things you can't mention on the radio.
Which is why we can't be more specific.
Can't get enough of Eric? Seek professional help. Or go to MetaxasTalk.com for all things Eric. Go ahead, binge a little.
The Eric Metaxas Show.
With your permanent guest host, Eric Metaxas.
Hello. Oh, my gosh. It's the Eric Metaxas Show, sitting here with my producer, Chris Himes.
Hello.
We are in the Empire State Building.
That's true.
But this is not our normal place in the Empire State Building. We're in the conference room.
Yeah.
And we've got people in the room. We have a live audience. They're making me nervous.
Well,
they're the Wilsons from Sumter, South Carolina. Look at them. They're staring at us. Look at them. No, but I just...
it's kind of fun.
I have to explain that, which I don't think I did in the last segment, that we're moving downtown to Wall Street.
We're becoming wolves of Wall Street.
We think, unless there's somebody out there willing to donate office space to us in the Empire State Building. What do we need? A studio.
Yeah, just
we hardly need any space, and we talk about the Empire State Building all the time. They should give it to us for free.
Right. Yeah, we should get some sort of kickbacks.
Right?
Yeah, the King Kong suite, maybe.
Yeah, we should talk to the management here.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another time. But if you have a lot of money and want to help us do that, we really it's the Salem Radio has decided to consolidate.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be in the downtown offices and studios with Joe Piscopo, Mike Gallagher, and
a bunch of other guys,
and the whole crazy gang. Lot to talk about. This hour, we're going to be talking to the editor-in-chief of a new women's magazine called Verily. I won't say anything about it now because we say everything there is to say in the next hour. We will have time to do that with Tara Esbach of Verily. And you can look up Verily Magazine online. It's amazing. When I found out about it, I freaked out. I said, how come people don't know about this? This is great. But this week, first of all, today is the Ides of March, and it's Super Tuesday 2.0. This is the day Florida votes. Mm-hmm. This is the day Ohio votes. And we all know if Rubio doesn't win Florida, he's done. If Kasich doesn't win Ohio, he's done. And we're looking at Trump-O-Rama. It's going to be really very interesting.
Yeah, it's. I think I said it. Maybe it was only a week ago, but I said I just can't help shake the feeling that it's just going to get more interesting. And
unfortunately,
and it's
not calming down. It's getting more interesting.
I think it's getting even more. I mean, I'm going to just say that every week. I think till November, and to be honest, even probably through December.
When they drag Hillary away in shackles, it's going to be a very strange day in presidential politics.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. My goodness. Well, tonight we will find out what is going on. As I said in the previous segment with Elena Camporis, tonight, mercifully, I will be at the New York City premiere of my Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, Electric Boogaloo, and I'm going to be doing that. That's tonight, so I won't be able to sit home and watch the blather because there'll be endless blather waiting for people to, come out of the they're going to have exit polls and entrance polls and so on and so forth, and I'll just come home in time to find out whether we are in the end times or not.
Well, it's gotten so granular with the results shows now on CNN. They go to and this is the county, and this block right here is Bob,
Yeah, they should do family by family.
Yeah,
break it down. Make it so granular you want to kill yourself. Well, honestly, it's an extraordinary moment in American history. I have to say, I get a lot of grief for being pro-Trump, and I get a lot of grief for being against Trump.
Yeah.
It is the weirdest thing. There are people on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever they are, who clearly don't read or think very clearly. And they just will notice that I had on Ann Coulter or I had on, and they just assume that I agree with whatever my guest says. So I've had people on who are, viciously anti-Trump and viciously pro-Trump.
John Zemerick.
And people have just been attacking me. We've lost respect for you. We once respected you or whatever. And it's just, I find it hilarious because no matter what, I'm trying to be fair-minded and trying to give a voice to both sides. But they think that even giving a voice to the other side, I might as well be worshiping Satan.
Well, it's this idea of having a conversation, having a nuanced conversation. I think is something that is at a premium, sort of lacking in the public discourse. I think there's some places that are doing it better.
Yeah, not here.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think we're trying. I think that's the idea.
I'm not trying. I'm not going to lie to you or to my audience. I'm not even trying. No, but I do think that it's funny how passions are so much at a boiling pitch, because people don't really. For example, the most thoughtful, quiet, level-headed person in the campaign was Ben Carson.
Yeah.
The moment he comes out for Trump, everyone is trash-talking him like we don't respect him anymore. In other words, everything he's done up to that point seems to be worth zero to those people. In other words, rather than saying, well, that's interesting, maybe I have missed something about Trump, instead they start attacking Ben Carson like, he just came out for Hitler or something, which I guess is what they think he's done. But it's really the level of emotion is extraordinary.
Well, I think people sense that there's a problem in this country, and unfortunately they're looking for political solutions. But I think
politics is very important. It's not going to. We shouldn't worship an idol of of politics, because that's a false idol, and yet politics is important.
It is important, but I think it's limited in terms of like what it can fix. And I think people are, the people that got sort of behind Obama were hoping for this kind of utopian thing that he was going to bring hope and change.
Has he not?
I think he's waiting for the
off?
last day of office. I think he's waiting for that.
Yeah, he hasn't pulled that off yet?
Yeah, because like everyone's going to open up their mailbox and they're going to have a rainbow inside.
Right.
Package.
Right. I don't want to forget to mention this week we are doing a campaign. When I say campaign, you know what I mean by campaign, right? I don't want to give it short shrift. If you go to metaxastalk.com,
that's right.
If you go to metaxastalk.com, you will find a banner for food for the poor. We're doing it's this week and next week, I guess. I can't remember.
That's right.
Food for the poor. And do you see the banner when you go to the site? I just want to make sure that people don't get confused, because right now I see a Miracles from Heaven banner. No, there it is, Food for the Poor. I want to make sure that people know that today, in addition to us giving you Eric Metaxas Show mugs, if you give $75, you get an Eric Metaxas Show mug, which you cannot get any other way unless you steal it, which would be wrong in most states. And if you give $125, you get 2 Eric Metaxas Show mugs and an Eric Metaxas Show T-shirt. But if you give today, that's before midnight, you go to metaxastalk.com, you go to the banner is way down. You see a picture of Tom Trade Up. If you go there and call that number or give today, you will also get 2 free VIP tickets. Do you understand VIP what that means?
It stands for Very Important Prince.
That's exactly right. You will get 2 VIP tickets to Socrates in the City, which is May 3rd. I have raved about Larry Taunton, my guest. He's written a book called The Faith of Christopher Hitchens. That is going to be an amazing event. There are not a lot of tickets left for that. No kidding. There's like 25 regular tickets left.
And by the way, he should be dead.
And Larry Taunton should be dead. That's the other thing. We had him on this program. You can go to our podcasts and listen. But one of the most amazing stories, and he's written a book called The Faith of Christopher Hitchens, which is going to make ideological atheists pretty angry, because it reveals a different side of Christopher Hitchens. And I am so excited. We haven't had a Socrates in the City like this in a long time. We haven't had any Socrates in the City events in a long time, and you know that. So we're doing one May 3rd. If you give today, you will get 2 VIP tickets free to that event. You can give them to a friend in New York or a student or whatever. But it's a pretty big deal. If you're in the mood to give $5,000, that gets you dinner with Eric Metaxas and friends any place in New York. You can pick the date as long as I'm in the city. It's a great cause. So I just want to encourage you, please think about doing that. I will not touch your plate while you're eating. I can be civil. We'll be right back. Metaxastalk.com. We'll be right back with our guest, the editor-in-chief of Verily Magazine, Tara Esbach. Thanks for listening.
I've a withering reply, and vanity I always...
Hey there, folks. It's the Eric Metaxas Show. That's Neil Young. And we're going to be talking about something that has nothing to do with Neil Young right now, nor would it even appeal to him in the slightest. I am really happy right now to have here in the studio in the Empire State Building, Kara Esbach, who is the co-founder and currently editor-in-chief and publisher of Verily Magazine, Verily. I have been excited about this magazine. It's a women's magazine. But I have a daughter, I have a wife, and when I saw this and heard about it, I said, this is so wonderful. I have to have somebody on to tell my audience about this magazine. So, Kara, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. And when I found out that Verily existed, I said, this is the kind of idea, like the branding is exactly what I have believed in. Like it's sort of, it's actually hard to describe because it's not, like overtly conservative or Christian, but it has this flavor of being traditional, but it's just so beautifully done that pretty much any young woman, I think, would say, hey, this looks interesting, this looks wonderful. And to have that vision and pull that off, I mean, how would you describe it?
First of all, thank you. I'm so glad that that's how it feels to you, because that's exactly what we set out to do. So Verily is a women's fashion and lifestyle publication. Now we're digital only. But when we started it, it was actually my co-founder and I are both sort of women who grew up in the culture, had Christian backgrounds, but sort of fell prey, if you will, to all of the messaging. I was a total magazine junkie growing up. I just loved all that content. I think women are looking for, I want to dress well. I want to, have a good relationship. That's what you think you're getting from a lot of magazines. And then kind of get a little older and realize that, wow, this was terrible advice that I've been getting for like my entire life. I don't really know how to approach the world, but I know that the messaging I'm getting other places isn't really working.
Well, the messaging, when you say that, it's kind of like, I always notice this if you're in the grocery store and you see all the women's magazines there, right? They're all coming from a certain point of view, which most people that I know do not share that point of view.
Absolutely.
But there is no alternative. There's Cosmopolitan and all those magazines that are kind of preaching this gospel of, me, or sex. And it's really, let's face it, it's incredibly immature. It's childish. It's ridiculous. It hurts lives, but they don't care because they're selling magazines. So I'm sure there are zillions of women out there thinking, well, I want something that talks about fashion, that's beautiful, that looks good, and that has all, tips or advice. It's just beautiful to look at. It's thoughtful, but I can't find it. And so that's why when Verily appeared, I saw some copies of it, and I thought, this is just stunning because you've pulled it off beautifully. And it's now, what's the website?
It's verilymag.com.
Okay.
So VERILYMAG. And so every single day we're releasing articles on fashion, beauty, relationship advice, lifestyle, health, sort of some cultural commentary, talking about the Oscars.
Right.
So it's really, I think it's encountering the same kind of topics that you see in a lot of these other places. But because we're just looking at the world through a different lens,
right,
the way that we approach these topics is just totally different. And I found that's the thing that is most exciting to me is when we get feedback from readers who are not expecting to encounter us the way that they did. They found us through a friend, shared an article on Facebook, and they're like, I've been looking for this kind of content for years. I'm so glad that somebody is actually creating it. And that's generally the reaction we get.
Well, I think that the words that I'm looking for in describing it is it's hip, it's cool, it's trendy in a good sense. In other words, you're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. This is not a kind of a fashion magazine for Amish girls or something like that. It's really progressive in the best sense of it, but it doesn't come with that like nasty baggage that the other magazines come with. And so I would say that it's the sort of magazine that would appeal to almost anybody. And it's not just for people who are, overtly traditional in their thinking. It's sort of a magazine for almost everybody, but they probably don't know it exists, which is one reason I wanted to have you on.
Oh, I appreciate it. 'Cause I think what you're saying is true. It's funny, a lot of publications have been twisting the statistic that 25% of millennials say they don't want to get married. But that means 75% of people 18 to 34 either want to get married or want a lifelong partnership, which to me is saying like the vast majority of young people are still looking for, in one sense, a traditional value of wanting to get married and have a lifelong healthy marriage. But we all recognize that we have no dating script. We don't know what a happy, healthy marriage looks like because we haven't seen it modeled in our media, in the advice that we're getting.
Right.
So I think that it's, to your point, it is so appealing because it's speaking to the heart of what people want. We just don't know how to get there. And I think that's the value we're providing. We're actually giving a roadmap in a way that's fun and engaging and looks really, really great. And that was something that was important to us from the beginning, was that it needed to look like it could sit on a newsstand, or that you would come to the website and you're like, this is just another beautiful site that I want to spend time on.
Yeah, which it actually is. It's interesting because I was thinking that, one of the reasons that I've always wanted to do media and broadcasting is because all my life I see things like Verily Magazine, and I just think, wow, this is so terrific. How do I tell people about this? Because I think that it's a cultural good for people to know that this exists. But advertising is expensive. It's hard to get on, programs, or whatever. And I always wanted to have a program or programs where I could lift this stuff up and say to people, look, this is amazing. This is, this magazine to me is at the heart of my vision for this program. Because as I say, when I looked at it, I said, there's nothing like this. Most people probably don't know that this exists. You guys don't have some huge budget, but the level of excellence and the vision are unlike anything I've seen. So, there are tons of women listening right now, and there are tons of guys that have, mothers and sisters and girlfriends and I think to myself, you need to know that something like this is out there. So again, I want to say the website is verilymag.com, 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 and obviously you can link to it on Facebook or on Twitter. But I really do think that once people find an alternative, I mean, this is how the free market works. Once they see it, they go, oh, okay, I'll choose that. But unless they get to see it, they don't know they can choose it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how did you get into doing this? It's just an amazing thing to me.
Yeah, it's a funny sort of meandering story, because I actually worked in finance for several years before starting Verily. So I was on Wall Street, and I just happened to meet this girl in New York who had worked at Elle magazine when she was in college. And it was one of these, like, a big brunch of women, comes around to the topic of women's magazines. And, oh, my goodness, what is this advice that we're getting?
Right.
And my co-founder, Janet, having worked at Elle, and she'd turned down a job offer from them because she was just like, I can't be in this environment. Just toxic, not just to read this stuff, but to be kind of living it day after day. And she's like, one day I want to start my own magazine. And for me, that just really clicked because I had read magazines for so long. I had sort of had a conversion experience back to Christianity and realized that so many of the things that I'd been taught more from my parents but hadn't seen modeled in the culture were so true. And it just was like, yes, that's exactly what we need. We need a magazine or, some kind of media. And I think we're the ones to do it. We're our demographic. We know what we want. We consume this media.
Right. So this is for, like, what's the demographic? It would be like 17 to whatever, 35 or?
Yeah. So we say 18 to 34 is kind of the, advertising demographic.
The advertising demographic, right.
College, 20s, 30s. We actually have a lot of women who are in their 40s who email us saying, we love what you're doing too.
They want to look nice too.
Yeah. And I think we're touching on a lot of topics that are sort of hitting on these transitional times. I'm thinking about getting married. I'm starting to have kids. I'm changing jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty in this time period, and people are looking for somewhere to give them a sense of a compass and direction.
Right. And you are married or not married?
I'm unmarried.
You're unmarried. That's called single, right?
Yes.
Am I getting that right? I always try to be up with the terminology. And where did you grow up?
I'm actually from the Detroit area. And so I moved out to New York totally for work. I expected to go back to the Midwest.
Right.
And then I started a company here, and so I've been captive for a little while. But I feel so grateful and feel like I was probably led here specifically just because of New York being such a central place for media. It's the best place that we could possibly be.
Absolutely. Everybody at the King's College, all the young women at the King's College probably already know about Verily Magazine. But for those that don't, verilymag.com. I'm just so excited that it exists, and I want to hear more about how you came to create it. and what's been involved and where you are now. So, folks, I'm talking to Kara Esbach, the editor-in-chief and publisher and co-founder of Verily Magazine. You need to check it out, verilymag.com. This is the Eric Metaxas Show. We're at metaxastalk.com. Check that out as well.
He would marry her next spring, save his money, bought a ring.
Hey there, folks. It's the Eric Metaxas Show. In case you were born yesterday, that's Johnny Cash. In this hour, I'm talking to Kara Esbach about the magazine that she co-founded, is currently editor-in-chief and publisher of. It is called Verily, 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 and the website is verilymag.com. I still find it fascinating that you just decided, hey, let's start a women's magazine. I mean, that's, a pretty big deal. But you did it. You pulled it off. It's it's an astounding accomplishment.
Yeah, some would say it was a little foolhardy, but I think we knew just enough to get us over the hump to do it, and not enough to scare us, probably as much as we probably should have been.
Right. But I think that's the way life is. That's
Absolutely.
The way most people get married.
Yeah,
I actually think that's true. No, I think it's true. That's why it's tougher to get married the older you get, because your eyes are really, really wide open. But when you're young, you just jump in, and then later on you go, I didn't know that. I don't know if I knew that. Would I have? I don't know. But it's too late, and then you kind of go with it, and it works. But it's kind of funny, because I think the greatest things in life are just like that. Like, you just have this passion, and it's not that you don't have wisdom, but you also have passion and a vision. And everybody says, like, are you crazy? I don't know. Right? Here's why it won't work. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, okay, I get that, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Let's see what happens. And, great things are accomplished. So I consider my marriage one of those great things. But but you, the idea of wanting to do, as you say, a women's magazine. I had somebody here a number of weeks ago who was one of the editors at a number of women's magazines, and was describing the toxic atmosphere of how they were selling a view of sexuality and all this stuff, which this woman said, I could no longer live with myself. Like, I knew this was just garbage, but they were doing this to sell magazines. And she was, at a number of the top women's magazines. This is a number of years ago. But it is interesting, because most people, when you're in the grocery store, you see those magazines, you're not thinking they're selling me this message. They just say, oh, we're just women's magazines. But they're not. They're selling you a certain message of what it means to be a woman and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you said you picked up on this at some point. Yeah,
I mean, I think that what most good service media, and that's mostly what women's magazines are, they're selling a vision of life. And particularly, I think all these magazines are giving you their quote-unquote expert opinion about what you should do for any X number of things. And I think that the insidiousness of that is that if it's bad advice, you're leading people to make real decisions and to take real action in their lives. Yeah. It also could be really empowering, and think this is what we saw as the opportunity, is that women are really hungry and looking for good advice. If they could find a publication that was attractive and interesting and actually gave them good advice, how much positive impact could there be in their lives to make those decisions? And it's interesting you're saying about, just the kind of worldview that they put forward. And I think that that's something that we've seen. We've had people say to us, are you trying to be, traditionalist? Are you trying to position yourselves as like pseudo-Christian? We're like, we're none of those things. We're just women producing good content who we happen to have a worldview that is going to come through. And I think in the same way that people at other places have a worldview that comes through, we just think that our worldview is one that's going to make you actually happy and flourish, and is more true to who you are as a human being.
Well, that's funny. And this is the problem that we have, I have with a lot of Christians. They can only think theologically. Like they don't seem to think that I actually have to think about fashion, about what I wear, how I look. Like being a Christian doesn't get me out of that loop. I still live in the world, and I still present myself, and I have to think about everything. I have to think about what I read and what I take in visually and what I do and what movies I see and what to make of them. And I think people feel like, no, I'm just gonna avoid all that stuff. You can't avoid it. And by the way, you're not supposed to avoid it. You're supposed to take your faith and, whatever view of the world you have and bring it to bear on all those things. And that's what I try to do on this show. And I think, but very few people do that. And that's why I wanted to, compliment you and the whole gang that runs Verily Magazine, because I know how hard it is to do it, because people are looking for something that is either like overtly religious and has some fashion tips or whatever. I mean, I know Focus on the Family and other people have put out magazines like that, but you obviously live in New York. You have a New York sensibility. That matters, I think, that because you're selling yourself as you're a mainstream publication, and there are, let's face it, tons of women looking for this. It's not some weird little niche group. There are tons of women across America and the world looking for something like this, but they're pretty much never going to bump into it.
Absolutely. And it's the thing that I find most interesting is when I talk to my friends, mostly from college or from when I was younger, who I think have a wildly different worldview than I do, who love our content because they're looking for fashion that makes them feel beautiful, not sexualized. They're looking for good relationship advice because they're married and having kids and have all of these issues too. They're not living the Sex and the City lifestyle that people sometimes think that a young single person is supposed to be living. So I think that it has a really broad appeal because more people are looking for it than you think, and using this medium allows them to encounter the idea in a non-dogmatic or sort of off-putting way. Right.
Well, we're going to go to a break here, but I'm going to continue this conversation with Kara Esbach about this wonderful magazine, Verily. Verily, Verily, Verily. We'll be right back. It's the Eric Metaxas Show.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own.
Hey folks, it's the Eric Metaxas Show. That beautiful music, that hymn, is sung by none other than, now I know, Kara, you would never guess this, Meryl Streep was singing that.
No way.
Are you not surprised?
I am totally floored.
Yes, you are. Meryl Streep, and the man's voice is Garrison Keillor. And it kind of illustrates what we're talking about, this general concept of how oftentimes people who are serious about their faith wrongly put everything in these two categories, like this is Christian and this is non-Christian, which is complete nonsense. Like show me a Christian apple, or is it a pagan apple? Show me a Christian table, a Christian planet, a Christian tree, these categories get stupid. And so here you have Meryl Streep, who I don't think is a self-avowed Christian. Garrison Keillor is some kind of a Christian, I think a very theologically liberal Christian. But they sing this song so gloriously. And so do you say, well, then this is people who don't believe it singing it, so I don't want to hear it or something? Or, it gets ridiculous. And it kind of makes you understand that we're not understanding that everything that's good is of God. And so to put things in these silly categories, actually, this is the ultimate example. Just listen to this, because this I think you'll find funny. Phil Keaggy, who was huge in the Christian music world in the 70s. Now he's still performing, and I want to have him on the show to talk about this. But he was so huge and tremendously talented guitarist, like one of the most talented guitarists in the world, literally. And at one point, at the height of his fame, he comes out with an instrumental album. And so all these people listened to it and they thought, well, wait a minute, there's no Christian lyrics, so I guess it's not a Christian album now, right? Like, it's hilarious to me because
just good music.
You just blew their categories, right? And I think sometimes it's our job to blow people's categories up and just to say, you're going to have to rethink what you mean by, anything that's beautiful or true is of God. So that's kind of what you do in this magazine. I mean, you're presenting this view of things, which I would bet most women in America would say, hey, this is great. This is really great. And that not only is that enough, but by not going further than that, just by doing what you do, you're inviting people outside of maybe circle where they would bump into something like this. They're just going to bump into it and say, hey, this is neat. What is this?
Yeah, I think that's actually been mostly our experience of growth has been people just sharing articles on Facebook, and then they start reading another article, and suddenly we're getting an email saying, I had never known you guys were around. I just love the idea of the way you approach these topics. Why hadn't I heard of you before? And I think it's exactly that. It's the not being overt necessarily about what our ideas are, but just showing them. I think that there's a lot to be said for show and not tell. And I think that it just like especially things like fashion or we're talking about like lifestyle or health kind of things. It speaks for itself in terms of what it says to you. And if you say, oh, I want to just look as great as that girl, you're probably going to be dressing in a way that is more in line with the dignity of who you are as a woman anyway. And it didn't have to be from a philosophical perspective.
I think that resonates with a lot of women, the idea that, they know that there's something wrong with the over-sexualization of women, but they still want to look beautiful. And I think that Verily, this magazine, it speaks to that issue, that it's not about being dour and, looking like whatever, a 1947 spinster librarian versus looking like, you name it, some beautiful model. It's that real women are dealing with these questions, and they don't want to look cheap or overly sexual, but they want to look attractive. And again, it's so hard to find that balance. So that's why I'm just amazed that you all exist.
Oh, thank you. Well, and to that point, one thing that we consistently find is a big drawing in for people is that we try really hard to show models of all different shapes, sizes, colors, and I think that when women see other women who look kind of like them but who look really beautiful, it feels attainable,
right? In
a way that looking at a Victoria's Secret model, I'm like, yeah, she's gorgeous, but that's ridiculous. Like, I'm 5'3", and I definitely do not have a long and lithe body. So what does it look like for me to look beautiful and to see somebody who I can kind of identify with and what she's wearing and think like, oh, I could actually do that, and I think she looks great, so maybe I would also think of myself as looking great too. Right. I think that it's just a cognitive shift that when you see it over and over and over again, it makes such a difference as a woman in the way that I see myself interiorly. I think it totally changes your outlook on the world and the way you interact with other people.
Well, it is interesting how, again, magazines, everything in the culture is selling a message, but they're usually not open about it, right? When you think of Playboy magazine, it's selling a whole philosophy that ended up ruining millions of lives. But of course, they don't focus on that part. They don't say, oh, yeah, you know what? We did get that wrong or whatever. They did. Hugh Hefner, to this day, he's in his 80s. He's wearing silk pajamas, and he's got these, young women around. And you look at that and you just think, that's sad. Like, that's where you end up. Like, I didn't know that, like, that's really sad. And Helen Gurley Brown, you could talk about her in Cosmopolitan. It's just that magazines are selling this view. But they don't honestly say, oh yeah, this is where it's going to lead you, by the way. You're going to be like alone and sexy. Like it doesn't say that.
Well, what's interesting about your example of Playboy is that in some ways, they ended up being a victim of their own success. I think this year they went to being no longer a nude magazine.
Right.
Because ultimately you have pornography and all these other mediums that are even more successful.
Right.
And what they don't tell you about pornography is that most of the guys who end up watching this now suffer from erectile dysfunction and they can't even have sex normally with their wives.
Pornography is ruining people's lives. It's unbelievable. After all these years, we're finally, now it's free. Everybody can have it, and it's ruining lives. Isn't that wonderful? Wow. Okay, folks, we're going to be right back. I'm talking to Kara Esbach. The website is verilymag.com. VERILYMAG.com. Definitely check it out and share it with your friends on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you are. It's just a rare and wonderful thing. We'll be right back.
On the resurrection morning, when the trump of God shall sound, we shall rise, hallelujah, we shall rise. Then the saints will come rejoicing, and no tears will ever be found. We shall rise, hallelujah, we shall rise.
We shall rise, we shall rise.
Amen, we shall rise on that resurrection morning, when death's prison bars are broken. We shall rise, hallelujah, we shall rise.
Hey there, folks. It's the Eric Metaxas Show. We're talking about Verily Magazine. That is a great title, great name for a magazine. Where did you come up with that?
It was a long and painful process, as so many naming things are. But we just happened upon the word verily, and we loved that it means truth and truly. And we just love this idea of trying to bring truth to women, and it seemed to really embody everything that we wanted this publication to be.
Well, but you understand, of course you understand that it's all about connotation. It's not just denotation, right? In other words, like it might mean this, but what does it mean to a person who sees it and doesn't really know what it means? Verily, it just sounds happy, and, it's like, on the one hand, you think of Jesus saying, verily, verily, I say unto you, or you could think of, verily, 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 life is but a dream. It's just this kind of happy, it rhymes with merrily. It really is just a happy. So branding is really important, and that's another reason I want to compliment you all on the magazine, because it is that branding that pulls it off. Because you could have the same content, but if it had, I have seen magazines. I won't mention the titles, but with the worst, like they say, we're going to start a new magazine called, whatever, and it's just. It sounds like, it sounds dull. And even if it's fascinating, it sounds dull. And it probably looks dull, and probably it's not going to work. Now, what is the reality of running a digital magazine? Are you all over the country, like we're putting this together, like,
it's a lot less glamorous than you might think. It's a lot of people sitting behind their computers and churning out content. But,
right.
One of the nice things, we have some people in New York, some people are throughout the country. So the girls in New York, luckily, are meeting with PR firms and kind of interacting with the fashion world to get a sense of what's going on out there and what's going to be cool soon, and how do we translate that into our vision of, how do we help women see themselves in this and actually dress well.
Right.
And that's on the style side. But I think the nice thing is that now that we're digital, we're having a lot of conversations with people just online and seeing like, what is it that women care about and are thinking about and talking about. But we're trying sort of in our next phase to do a little bit more of offline engagement, because I think one of the great things about being a publication is that there's a sense of community around it. People want to know what we think. They want to know what other readers think. You see them conversing on Facebook or on the comment section.
Yeah.
And would love to sort of take that offline.
Yeah, you should have like a conference.
We would love to do something like that.
Is that what you'd call it?
We'll see if we get to like a big national conference. So we'd definitely love to empower our sort of local readers to get together, because I think there's so much to be had and to be said about meeting with other women in community.
Sewing bees considered not cool?
I have never encountered a sewing bee, so I have no idea what that is.
I was joking, Kara. It's Kara.
I hope so.
It's Kara, not Kara, or is it Kara?
It's Kara. Yeah,
it's Kara. Good. I was joking. Yeah, a sewing bee. That is so quaint. That's like churning butter, you know?
Yeah, people are really into crocheting now. I hear that's like a thing now.
I know. You never know. I could offend somebody. I'm sure I offended somebody. But, you know, it's just been, the time flies, but it's just been a joy to have you. My guest has been Kara Esbach. And the magazine, again, it's Verily, Verily, and the website is verilymag.com. Obviously, I recommend it. Check it out and share it with your friends. It's too rare and wonderful not to. You've been listening to the Eric Metaxas Show. Our website is metaxastalk.com. Check us out. That's what I'm talking about. Check us out, and thank you for listening.
I don't care what they have